What's the beef? Episode 64 of the Chef Fit podcast. Confidence is earned, not given, chef. And before we dive into this good stuff we're about to deliver to you, what I want you to do is subscribe to the channel, like the video, or leave a 5-star review on this episode on whatever platform that you're listening to it on. Whether it be Podbean, whether it be iTunes, whether it be YouTube, whether you're even listening to it on our Facebook page, make sure that you like and show the support so we can get this message out to as many chefs as humanly possible. Obviously, if you take something from this podcast, chef, there's going to be others that will also. So we please, with all our fucking good vibes, we implore you to help out, support as much as you possibly can, and share this and like it, okay? The thing does not grow. The message.
2 clicks on a share to Facebook is something huge now for somebody that might need to hear this.
One share, one prayer. Do you know?
That's it, Gordo style.
Stop. Love it. Lockdown brought out some old school Facebook techniques. People were bringing back the copy and paste status. The fucking, do you know what I mean? I nominate this. You know what I mean? I nominate you. I got nominated for a couple of things. Like, this is the third time I've been nominated for something a week. I don't even use Facebook proactively anymore. It's like I use it to post shit, and you might float through, might see, you know what I mean, some page that I followed.
Hey, just for fun, copy and paste. Don't cheat. Share your answers. Yeah. Tag 3 people. Nope.
Fuck right off with that. You can fuck right off with it. If any, do you know when they talk about, like, at least most social media will kind of lure you into a false sense of like, hey, I'm on social media, but there's something to be gained here. There's a cool pic. There's something. That shit is just like, that is brain numbing. Brain numbing. Why did
my
he do
dad
the thing?
Literally the worst for that.
My lad is like, I think he's actually Facebook famous. He spends fucking 8 hours to 10 hours a day on Facebook. It's absolute insanity. And he only discovered it when he was like 60 years old. This is it's insane. And older people don't grasp the concept of, Jesus, this is amazing. And they're like totally addicted to it. But both my parents are shocking for social media use.
When you hear this, I got a text, and not me specifically, but in fantasy football WhatsApp group. Tommy Clark said, I fucking love Leeds. Now, he hates Leeds, but you know yourself, that's my team. He said, I fucking love Leeds now, and then posted up a TikTok that he found. And it was literally my dad, right, who has hundreds of TikTok videos, sitting there with a cup of tea and a Leeds jersey on, going, how's it going? Just sitting down now to watch the Leeds game. Love it. That was it. I was like, oh, brilliant. He's like, he's my favorite guy on the internet now.
I fucking love that. Oh man,
and you've seen them dancing. You've seen my parents dancing.
Did you and the young lads obviously got them on those vibes? That is fucking hilarious. Peter and his son's exploiting his parents for fucking crack.
For clout.
Yeah, exactly. That's literally it. Yeah, clout chasing. Get the parents in on them. That is so funny. Just about to watch the Leeds game.
Yeah, he uses TikTok for like stories or Facebook updates, status updates. How's it going? It's 3 o'clock here in Dublin, so I reckon it's around 10 a.m. in New York for all my American friends and family. Hello, how are you? Philip here, about to sit down and watch the Leeds game. All the best. Look. He's a legend.
What a man. What a fucking
And then
man.
at least twice a week he gets jarred and sings a load of songs on the internet.
That is
I'm going to try a new one here. This is Snow Patrol. Let's take time. You bang out a few songs a night.
You didn't lick it off the Stones, Peter. You did not lick it off the Stones.
Absolute legend.
Fuck's sake. And he left you the gift of being a Leeds supporter as well. Do you know what I mean? Take that for the rest of your life.
Yeah, suffer that shit.
Okay. The emotional roller coaster.
How's your week been? Didn't see you last week.
No, didn't. All good, all good. Things are things are pretty normal. I don't know. We're in Melbourne at the moment, so apparently Melbourne's in the news worldwide because it's supposed to be like the hotspot. It's supposed to be kicking off in Melbourne because they've got a second surge of corona. Things are just normal as fuck here, to be honest. I think from the outside looking in, people are messaging us and they're going, "Jesus, are you okay?" But gyms are back to fucking regularity. You can go out for a drink, you can go out for a meal as long as you're booking it in. And yeah, like it's like normal life with stabilizers at the moment, but it is
Yeah, I
what
saw
it is.
pubs open here yesterday.
Yeah, get the pubs open before you get the gyms open, folks. That's exactly
just as I get put on a blade and course of Dyfane, the pubs open up.
Lovely.
Yeah, thanks for that.
That's it. Things I've missed, things that I didn't even do back home. I'd love a fucking pint of Guinness and a packet of cheese and onion crisps. I know we're chef fit. I know it's a lifestyle pod, but every once in a while, if you're gonna treat yourself, I fucking love a pint of Guinness, packet of cheese and onion crisps.
A nice outdoor pint on a nice day.
Stop.
With the football on.
Stop.
Can't beat it.
Absolutely unbelievable. And definitely that's a positive about being locked up, folks, is that you actually remember and appreciate and are grateful for the things that you took for granted. So things that I took for granted personally would have been having a pint every fucking couple of months. All right. Having a pint every couple of months. Getting access to a gym. Took that for granted. As soon as I have access to them again, I'm fucking loving it because it's like someone's taking your toy away from you that you took for granted. Now you got it back, and now it's like it's a fucking brand new toy all over again. So those are my two fucking big things. But life is slowly but surely returning back to normal. I think I just don't give in to the fucking fear shit anymore. You know what I mean? And it's not that I'm sick of hearing it because it's obviously the virus is still there. But it's just this scaremongering of, and it really shows the power of the fucking media. And it's scary, the power of the media and how they can kind of influence people's minds. I was so terrified when this thing started, you know what I mean, for at least a week. Absolutely terrified of what was in store. I was walking out of my gaff. I was like, have I washed my hands leaving the gaff? Okay, cool. Fucking keys, like making sure I wasn't touching my face, not touching anything with my hands. When I came back in, I washed my hands twice. You know what I mean? Shit like that. And that just, you don't even realize at the time, you think you're being smart, and you're mitigating the risks. But the thing about my mindset is like, I'm doing that purely out of obviously trying to keep myself safe, but also out of like, oh fuck, what happens if this happens? What happens if I get it? And I think as things slowly get back to normal, I think it's kind of par for the course that you are going to have an upsurge in the cases because you've gone from everyone's now indoors to fucking most people are living life as normal. So I don't think that's surprising, and I think it's a bit ridiculous. They're going to go, oh my God, I can't believe we're having a second coming of corona. No, I think that's...
We had one death a day the last 3 days over here.
Is that good in comparison to what was happening before?
Yeah, it's nearly at zero. It started at 100 a day, down to like 50 a day, and now it's down to 1 a day. And some days there's no deaths. Yeah. I just I put up this thing on the Bushy Park Run page saying, look at when they keep putting up posts about when we're going to be back running and stuff like that. And I was using it as an example on this post that I posted in that closed group where you have a lot of the regulars, but you have all of the volunteers and all of the people that have volunteers. So it would be like 40 or 50 people that are always going to be there. So it's the core group. And I was like, I hopefully when this does come back, say, right, you're allowed to do park run again, that everybody just agrees that if you want to do it, do it. If you don't want to do it,
don't.
Fuck off and don't do it. If you want to social distance, fuck off and social distance. Don't go into places where you don't have to and start giving out about people not wearing masks or, walking down Bushy Park and people, when you're walking past somebody, they go like this and they turn their fucking head away from you. You know what I mean? This type of shite.
Yeah.
When we go back, just go back. If you want to be social distance, go and do it over there. Don't try and push that on everyone else.
Yeah, it's always, but it's the classic, especially where I'm from. Like, I find wherever your locality is, there's always going to be a Denzian of Facebook friends from that locality with the fucking, you know what I mean? Basically a bee in their bonnet, you know? And it's just, it's that stupid fucking mentality of, you know, after a certain point, there's only so much lockdown the whole entire world can do before you actually have to get to a point where it's like, okay, well, I'm making a choice to go and live life right now, and I'm going to take the risk of whatever that might be. Obviously, I'm not going to be a stupid cunt and put myself in unnecessary risk and put myself in unnecessary danger. But I'm going to fucking live my life. And this whole thing about, you know, people just spouting shit and regurgitating things and they don't really know what they're even talking about. You know, it's all those people that were like, we had chefs who were fucking in that space that I knew that were fucking freaking out, wouldn't go for a run because in case they passed somebody, wouldn't exercise, wouldn't do these things, but they go to the shop and they get a rake of drink. And no problem picking up a basket that someone else has touched. No problem taking the bottle that the shop vendor has picked off the shelf with their hands and hand it to you. Do you know what I mean? Like, there was no problems there. But if someone's on a run, like, you can't go for a run in the park, or you can't do a park run. It's like that doesn't compute with me. And it's the same idea behind, you know what I mean, like the pubs being open versus the gyms. Well, I guarantee you that the people who are the first in the doors at the pubs are probably the people who are fucking most at risk.
Because if that, people better believe it.
Because if that's your first priority is to get, I understand it. Listen, I'd love to go for a pint as well, and I did, and I have gone for a pint since the place is opened. But it's like, you know, it's just the priorities. The majority of people that find that a pub is their absolute need, that they have to have it. It's like, I get you, I understand it. But you're probably going to be fucking far more at risk because of where your health is at, because that's your first priority. Whereas the people who are going to go and train in the gym and actually take care of themselves are the ones that are at least at risk. But then again, they have to be put on hold and you know what I mean? It's okay to get fucked up, but it's not okay to take care of yourself. There's a lot of double standards. There's a lot of things that are inconsistent. And I think when you have those inconsistencies, it's just fucking moronic to criticize, you know, and say, oh, you know, people should be doing this, or it's a disgrace that people are meeting up and, oh, fuck off, you fucking dickhead. 4 or 5 months.
Anything else? The thing I'm waiting for, the thing I'm looking forward to most, right? I got my brother into cycling at the very, very start of lockdown, and he got his first road bike, and now he's fucking full Lycra, the whole lot, and he's doing about 250, say about 200 kilometers a week on it, and we haven't gone for a spin yet, and we talk about cycling on the phone every single day.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm looking forward to most. I'm going to throw the bike on the back of the car. I'm going to fuck off to Mayo, and then we're going to go and, you know, do a 120 or 140 and then get back and then just drive home.
The scenic rate, I'd say that'll be fucking serious, man. I'd say that will be serious, you know. That's what I think. That's the different story in Australia, is that it's such a prioritized thing, is that health and fitness and generally taking care of yourself is not just seen as a bonus, it's seen as a necessity, you know. And I just think that with all of this shit going on, don't be Karen off the fucking, you know, the Wicklow Town Open Forum, giving it a go, complaining about people wearing masks when you're fucking, you know what I mean, a 5'2", 18-stone woman who's eating Rustler's burgers off the shelf, you know what I mean, and that's feeding your kids the same thing. That's the double standards that I see. You know, people who are at risk because of their bad choices are then fucking having to go with people who are trying to carry on with life, so things aren't that stagnant. Anyway, enough of that fucking rant. Let's move into gear here, folks. Confidence is earned, not given, right? Confidence is earned, not given. That's today's topic. The reason that I'm diving into this is because it's outside of maybe depression, you know what I mean? Outside of maybe depression, anxiety, and being overly stressed, and just generally being in a very dark place mentally, confidence is probably the second biggest issue that I deal with as a coach. Used to personally, not anymore personally, but definitely with the clients that I coach, their biggest problem, and for a lot of chefs, the biggest problem is confidence in themselves. And it's not confidence in the kitchen. And that's something that me and Peter are going to talk about. It's not confidence in the kitchen, it's confidence in themselves. You know, what is confidence first and foremost? It's a psychological feeling about you as a person and your body image. You know what I mean? That's the context that we're talking about here. It's how you feel about yourself and how you feel about your body. And I feel that a lot of people in this industry are in a very, very, very bad place when it comes to this. You know what I mean? And the problem is within this industry, there's a lot of bravado, there's a lot of ego, there's a lot of it's a pissing contest and who's pushing to get the most accolades or who's pushing to be seen as doing the most or who wants to be on paper the best or rated as the best. There's a lot of that type of competition going on between chefs. So having the humility and having, I suppose, the sincerity to admit that you struggle within yourself is definitely not going to be on the list of things that you want to be doing. So we have a lot of people that struggle behind closed doors. You have a lot of chefs who struggle behind closed doors. And that struggle can be seen in a million different ways. The main one, the main few things that I see. Number one, relationships. Either you're in a relationship and your confidence is such a problem that you literally don't have a sex life. You know, I've talked to chefs who've either joined the elite or had consults, and it's like haven't had sex in 3 months, and you're in a relationship with someone who was in a relationship for less than a year and they hadn't had sex in 3 months. You know, and it's like, why is that happening? It's like, well, I feel shit about myself and I don't want to engage. Okay, cool. That'd be one example of a problem. Another one is probably an even worse situation is where you've got a chef who's single, usually a few years younger, and doesn't have the confidence to even, you know, initiate a relationship or initiate talking to someone of the opposite sex or the same sex, whatever you're into. Other things that it's going to leak in and affect generally how you actually how you view yourself in your life and how you're able to take feedback or take any kind of criticism. And anyone that takes feedback as a personal slight usually has some kind of self-esteem issue, some kind of, you know, I call it it's called a narcissistic slight, where, you know, something that's inconsequential to you, right? Something that you've seen happen that doesn't really have anything to do with you, but it affects you deeply. That's usually, you know, down to low self-esteem. If you take it personally when it's nothing to do with you, or your head's fucked up over a situation that you have no control over, generally that's going to be related to low confidence as well. So we know it's a big issue. You know, we know it's a big issue, and it's an issue that doesn't get talked about, that happens behind closed doors. And really, it's very few people who hear the full ins and outs of it. And I know for me personally, I've probably more experience than anyone in terms of, you know, the amount of chefs that I've seen in this position. The thing that I see is that chefs will have this lack of belief in themselves, or they'll have this low self-esteem, or they won't have confidence in themselves, and they'll hate what they're seeing in the mirror, and they're not happy, whether it be overweight, underweight, just not in shape, you know, their body not in a good place. You know, this is such a common issue, but the problem is chefs accept it as a reality. They accept it as the norm for the rest of their life. Like, I'm just someone with no confidence. I'm just someone with low self-esteem. I'm just someone who doesn't believe in themselves. I'm just someone who second guesses everything that they do or everything that they say. I'm someone that takes everything personally, or I take everything as an attack or a slight. You know, when you tell yourself that that's just the way things are, you're never ever going to do something about it. And what you've got to understand, and what I've seen happen in front of me, is that I've seen chefs go from being in that place to being in a place of being highly confident, of proving to themselves that they are worth more, and ultimately completely turning their lives around. But the whole premise of turning your life around is that you earn it. The whole premise of becoming a confident person is that you earn the confidence. The whole idea behind developing self-belief is that you do work that is worthy of believing in. And that is the truth. You know, so for everyone that says, oh, you know, I have no confidence. Okay, well, here's the idea, It's like nothing in your life. Like, yeah, sure, you might have grown up as a kid and you were told you were a fucking piece of shit. You were told you were never worth anything and all of those things. And that can really impact your self-esteem, you know, and that's why you can grow up. No one bolsters your confidence. No one bolsters your self-esteem. So you grow up as an adult and then you've got all these issues. That doesn't necessarily have to be the narrative forever. You understand that, you know, things can be done by being proactive. Things can be achieved by fucking working hard and making it happen. Like, you mightn't have believed in yourself as a chef, and this is the common issue that we see, is that people are legends in the kitchen, let's say, you know what I mean? And Peter can discuss this with me as well, but like, people are legends in the kitchen, you know, and that they become competent at something. They're able to cook, they're able to get through a service, and that slowly becomes their way of valuing themselves. And it becomes the identity that I'm this fucking chef and I'm able to handle all these hours and I'm able to do all this work and I'm able to cook like this and it looks fucking great. And you know what I mean? I've had good reviews written about me and this is my food. And it's a thin line between, you know, you've earned that confidence and that's fantastic. There's a thin line between genuine confidence and ego, you know? And I think when you actually lack self-esteem as a person, and then you go into the kitchen and you develop a skill set and maybe you go and achieve something within your career, there's still a fragile, you know what I mean, a thin line where it's like, yeah, absolutely, you're confident in yourself as a chef, but the reality is a lot of those things are based in ego, and as a person, you're not actually that confident. So I know a lot of chefs that are good leaders and potentially who can operate well within the kitchen, but they actually second guess themselves all the fucking time, but they're just putting a brave face on it. And that's because any confidence that they do have is based around their ability to cook, not around them as a person. You know, so that's.
So would you find then, Cam, that chefs would know that, or they would be aware that they were low in confidence? Because from the chefs that I knew, from what I knew of chefs before Chef Fit, and from what I know of chefs now, there seems to always be, you know, there always is two sides to that person. There's Chef Peter and outside of work Peter, and they can be completely different people.
Yeah.
And then these, like, they wouldn't know necessarily that they were low in confidence. They just think, oh, I'm a bit down, or I don't feel right, or
Definitely.
you know, would you'd eat them and then you would almost build a profile of them through, okay, so, you know, where's the problems here, where's the problems there, and then kind of get into.
They know there's problems. They know there's problems. A lot of chefs haven't made the connection. Do you know what I mean? So they know there's problems, but they haven't made the connection. And I suppose the idea behind our message in Chef Fit, and maybe even behind how I coach and consult people, is that you're trying to connect the problems to these underlying fucking, you know, that underlying pain identity. That's what it is. It's a pain identity. Like, I'm not a confident person. That's a pain identity. You know, I'm not a confident person. I'm a depressed person. I'm, you know what I mean? All the, like, whatever that thing is, you got to understand that if someone comes to me and they're certain their problems are like, I don't like what I see in the mirror. I don't have a sex life necessarily. My relationship is under pressure. And generally I just walk down the street and I second guess myself and I think people are looking at me. You know, that person mightn't have deciphered that they have low confidence, but you can tell that they have low confidence. So that's one thing.
Because in the kitchen, they're the opposite to that.
Absolutely. And it's a fake it till you make it environment.
Yeah.
It's exactly. It's a fake it till you make it environment. And
that's
and it's not like I'm not here to tell you that it's not outwardly negative and you're wrong for believing in yourself as a chef. Not at all. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's one great way of building belief and building a solid identity for yourself. But again, it's this whole, the environment that a kitchen is almost a fake it till you make it environment, where you don't want to be seen as the fucking runt of the litter. You don't want to be seen as the one who can't do the hours. You don't want to be seen as the one who's incompetent. Like, no one does, but with kitchen environment especially, that's definitely a thing. So if you're someone who really struggles with self-belief and you don't have any confidence in yourself, you'll walk into a kitchen and you'll try and act like you do have confidence, so you're not seen as the one who doesn't have confidence. Now, the issue with that environment is that chefs will never admit what's truly going wrong with them. So that's why, like, I had someone ask a question you know, yesterday, and this is just an example of, and it's not being bad, but I think the guy was full of shit. I think he was wearing a fucking mask and he's acting like there's something wrong, nothing wrong. He left a message, or he left a comment on one of the Facebook ads, the Chef Fit ads, and it was like, "Is there any coaching for the mental stress side of things?" Question mark. You know, and it wasn't a cute question. He was genuinely asking, and I answered him straight up. You know what I mean? I was a week late, I think, with answering the question, but I was straight up and I said, listen, man, like the lifestyle is our way of dealing with the stress and the mental side of things. There's obviously tools that we have within the program that we use, our meditation, our yoga, our planning, organization, goal setting, all of those things. That's the kind of things that we do to gear it around sorting stress and, you know what I mean, building that confidence in yourself so you don't feel negative about yourself. And he's like, oh, well, I don't struggle with any of those things. I was just asking for a friend. That was the reply back. You know, it's like, you asked me specifically, do we have anything in place within the program to help with the mental health side of things, the confidence side of things, the psychological side of things, basically. And when I explained that this is exactly what we do to address those things, you're like, oh, well, thanks, but that's like, that wasn't my issue. You know, I'm fine. I think he said, I don't have any stress. I don't have stress of any kind right now, but I was asking for other people's sake. I was asking for a friend. It was just prime example. It's not saying the person's a bad person, but it's a prime example of someone being full of shit, in my opinion. You know what I mean? And I can see it a fucking mile away. And it's really, it baffles me because females are far more forthcoming with these kind of, with admitting that they are lacking in something or they're struggling with something. Men, especially as they get older and older and they go unchecked, their ego grows and they justify their own bullshit even more. And that whole idea of even saying, oh, well, I don't have any problems with stress. It's like every person at some degree, at somewhere along the line, struggles with stress levels, man. Do you know what I mean? Everyone struggles psychologically with something. You mightn't be depressed, but you're struggling with something. To say you don't have any problems whatsoever and you're just asking for a friend, that's exactly what I'm talking about. It's that fake it till you make it attitude. It's that I'm grand, there's nothing wrong with me, pal. Don't fucking worry about me. Why are you even looking at me as if there's something wrong? You know, it's that kind of fucking weird mentality. And that's where a lot of the problems come from, because then it's just this problem that
big
happens.
Ego could be a cover up for low self-esteem.
Exactly. And it's like you have, but that is what it is. When you see situations where you have chefs, you get into positions of power, you know, who you know are bad leaders, but they have big reputations. It's usually because of their fucking ego, you know. And like one of the lads in the group recently rhymes with Padrian. He was saying about his boss is like this well-known chef, and he's this big fucking fat guy who literally like spends his days trying to belittle his fucking staff. You know what I mean? He was calling the chef out that's in the tribe for trying to make a change, and he kept saying how he's going to be back to square one in no time after a week back in work. And this is a guy who's lost like 15, 20 kilos. He's doing really fucking well. He's made massive changes and he's turning his life around. And all his boss can tell him is how quickly he's going to fail, you know? And the reason that he's telling him that is because he's a fat cunt and it's making him feel shit about himself. Other words, it's damaging his ego. And you see a lot of situations like that in the industry. You see a lot of situations where you have head chefs and you have fucking exec chefs who've gotten into a position that they're at. And ultimately, anything that threatens their image, they'll attack it or they'll try and bring it down a notch, you know? So even the fact that they have a chef.
Imagine breaking him down on a hot seat. Somebody like that with the extreme ego.
Yeah, it's too much to fucking bear. It's too much to handle. There's a lot of, especially in Melbourne, you get a lot of service industry heads. There's a guy I met here, a chef, and again, he's like, you know, I've met him a couple of times. He's a nice enough guy, but there's a tremendous amount of ego there, you know, and it's like talking about how great chef it is, but he said he's too scared to he wouldn't tell me he was scared to join, but he told like, you know, Ella that he was scared to join. You know, but then when he's a few drinks on him, he's fucking, you know, how great chef it is, how great he is as a chef, how bad he has it in terms of his hours and all of this fucking shit. And it's like always saying something, always faking it, but never really meaning it. You know what I mean? Like you talk a big game like you support Chef It, but you're too scared to join it. You know, you claim that you have all these things, but the truth is you can see that you don't have any confidence in yourself, you know, and that's a really, really, really common situation. And it's not that every chef is like that, but a lot of the times ego can make up for what you lack in actual confidence and self-esteem. You can tell when someone's comfortable in their own skin. So here's the thing. If this problem goes unchecked, it can fuck with you psychologically. There's a lot of chefs out there that are depressed about their lack of belief in themselves because they literally don't see themselves or hold themselves in high regard. They see themselves as, I've heard chefs call themselves pieces of shit all the time. And it's a horrible thing to do because that's your narrative about yourself. That's what you're saying about yourself. And that can really lead into being a very unhappy person. So the key thing that I want to get across to you today is that confidence is earned. Okay, confidence is earned. Now, when I see in chef, it's something that I've earned myself. Like I was a fucking kid who was bullied. I was the fucking fat kid in school, never got the girl. Like I was always the one who fought. Like I always took slagging. I was the youngest of fucking, 3 brothers who were all much older than me. So I took fucking plenty of guff at home. Like I took plenty of shit as a kid. And as I grew into a teenager, it's like, I had that narrative about myself of being the bullied kid, of being the fat kid and not fucking, you know what I mean? Not necessarily thinking that you're the popular one or you're the fucking cool one or whatever. And in that process, I was lucky to find the gym. I was lucky to always be involved in sports, and my older brother would bring me to the gym when he was fucking playing rugby. And, I got into that environment very, very early on. Sport and fitness especially became an avenue and a path for me to not only express myself physically, but also build certainty in who I am. And I'd say it like this, a lot of my character, I forged it under a fucking barbell. And that's very, very true. And I'll explain this in a second, because it wasn't necessarily just about me doing a bit of training in the gym and yeah, that's great, and a bit of fitness. So when you start off, that might be the case. As I developed and as I got better at the thing, I started taking up powerlifting. I started really developing my skills within fitness. And in that process, I would prove to myself, what I was worth. I would prove to myself that actually I am stronger than I think I am. I can push further than I think I can. I can do more than I think I'm able to. And that's a very, very powerful thing to figure out, where you have a path and you have an outlet that builds your self-esteem, that builds your confidence. That's why everyone should do something challenging in their personal life. I know these people with low self-esteem, I would ask you, what do you do in your personal life to develop your self-esteem? Probably nothing, probably nothing. And here's the whole idea. There's a concept, and there's an author called Robert Greene. He wrote this book called Mastery, best book I've ever written. In one of his books, he speaks about this concept of having dead or alive time, dead time versus alive time. And he used Malcolm X as another author who used that concept. He used Malcolm X as an example of dead or alive time. Anyone doesn't know, Malcolm X was he was a civil rights and a black rights activist, and he's a very, very, very well-known historical figure. It wasn't not the Muslim Brotherhood. I'm trying to think of what
he was a Muslim. Yeah, no, he was. But that was it. Yeah, it was that.
So the Muslim Brotherhood. So he was kind of.
It was the Muslim Brotherhood that killed him in the end.
Exactly, they kind of turned against him, and the other leader of it, some kind of moodiness happened.
Yeah, he outed the leader of the Muslim Brotherhood, who was a womanizer and didn't go, went against everything that he had been teaching him.
Yeah, exactly. So he was the real deal, and the leader was kind of acting the bollocks on the side. Malcolm X fucking outed him, and then ended up getting killed over it, which is pretty mental. But back to the origin of the story. Malcolm X, when he was 21, went to prison for 10 years because he was part of a crew or a gang.
Pimp and a pusher.
Yeah, pimp and a pusher, and they would rob and steal and whatever else. And he went to jail, and you know what I mean? Like, if you look at the facts, he got caught doing something really illegal. He went to jail for 10 years. Now, here's the whole concept of dead or alive time. When he went into prison, it's like those 7 years, I think he spent in prison, 7 to 10 years, he spent all of his time, reading, like night and day, and read everything from politics to fucking history to philosophy to everything and anything. And when someone asked him years later, when he was Malcolm X, this very, very powerful, famous figure, what was your alma mater? What was your fucking college that you went to? And he said, my alma mater was books, and he spent that time in prison as a live time. That was a live time where he was pushing himself to grow, level up, and learn more. And if Malcolm X hadn't have gone to prison, at that formative age, he never would have become Malcolm X. He never would have become this amazing figure that is an inspiration to a lot of people and stood up in a fucking time of civil unrest and stood up for a time when black people were being treated like subhumans. And obviously still remnants of that at the moment. But, you know, you've got that situation going on. He never would have done that if he hadn't have taken that time and made it alive, treated it as a live time. So dead time is the time in your life where you're kind of floating along and you're doing nothing. And a lot of people who struggle with confidence and self-belief and low self-esteem are usually spending the majority of their time dead. They're not actually pushing towards anything. They're not challenging themselves. They're just showing up to work, doing their job, spending their personal time doing whatever, you know, floating around with the family.
Consuming, not creating.
Consuming, not creating, spending time flicking through fucking social media, doing sweet fuck all. And it's like those people are the ones who end up in a place where they have no belief in themselves and they have no confidence. And to me, that's a really obvious answer. It's because you aren't using your time to develop anything within yourself. So of course you're going to feel shit about yourself. Like all these chefs that I speak to, and it's, again, I feel for them, but here's the reality. You eat shit on a daily basis. You know what I mean? You don't exercise, you drink heavy amounts of booze, you take drugs regularly. You know, you don't take care of yourself, you don't use your time, you spend 80%, 90% of your energy within a kitchen setting. Outside of that, then you don't have the time, you don't have the energy, you don't have the headspace with your current lifestyle to do anything with your time. So you don't have any work-life balance. You've got all this pain, but the time isn't being used to push you. The time isn't being used to challenge yourself. The time isn't being used for you to grow. And because you're not growing, you're stagnating. And when you stagnate, of course, you don't have any certainty in yourself. Of course, you don't have any belief in yourself. Whereas on the opposite end of that, use that Malcolm X example. Whereas in the 7 years he was in prison, he read every book under the sun and he came out a different human being and was able to become one of these incredibly powerful, influential figures in history. That all comes down to every human being has time. What do you make of that time? And for you to develop confidence, you have to start understanding that you must have alive time, not dead time. And if you're floating through fucking life, then don't expect to feel like you're winning at life. You know, if you're floating through life, don't expect to feel like you're winning at life. And if you're attacking it and you're living on your edge and you're driving forward and you're seeking to achieve things and you're overcoming challenges and in fucking insurmountable obstacles, well, of course, in the process of doing that, you're going to start developing some powerful self-belief. You're going to start developing some like, okay, looking in the mirror, actually, I'm fucking pretty happy with what I'm seeing there. This is going well. This is going good. You know, when I go to
wins.
Yeah, you're picking up momentum. You're driving your life in the right trajectory. You know, and it's like two opposite ends of a spectrum. Low confidence, you know, full self-belief. And your actions determine which one you're going to. Do you know what I mean? They do. Yeah, exactly. Do you like that? That's the spectrum, folks there. Yeah.
That's the old double blowjob.
That's it. The double wank. You got the double wank. Not much else to say. But
you find that a lot of chefs are a shell outside of the kitchen. You know that way?
For lack of a better term, if we're being hard, we're not fucking mincing words here, folks. Yeah, but it's true. Yeah. I would agree with you. And again,
I'm only speaking from experience, and you know, with 20 years in the place,
yeah,
and then having a different view of it from half in, half out, and then from outside of it as well. You know, that a lot of chefs are a completely different person. I know one person, and he's my best mate, and that he's the same person outside. When I worked with him, he doesn't work as a chef anymore, but he was the same person outside as he was inside. He had all his ducks in a row, you know, and he's one of the most headstrong people that I know as well. And when I met him in that place that we were working, he was a buzzer. He was super confident. And then I met him outside work, and I think that's why we clicked. You know, he's best man at my wedding. I was best man at his wedding.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's what sets him apart from a lot from most of the chefs that I've ever met, is that he was this super confident, very good chef. But then when you're outside work, he's literally a top man. Like, so, you know, you won't meet a nicer person. You wouldn't meet a more polite person or somebody that is more genuine. Yeah. And to know somebody that is the same inside and outside, it makes it a very strong contrast for other people, where most of the chefs that I know that are still especially within the restaurant and hotel trade,
Yeah.
outside of work, it's a completely different person, no matter how good they are.
Totally. 100%. I fucking see it. And again, like, this is the only reason that I slightly hesitate on trying to be. Sometimes I come across as harsh, and I've caught flack in the past for being harsh with people and fucking really calling it like I see it. But that is a very true statement, you know. And the reason that we can speak from that experience is because we have experienced every type of chef. Like, Chef Fit is like the simulation of seeing a person's character unravel. And you see people who take to it and are able to adopt it and fucking listen, and they take on feedback, and they basically are willing to change themselves because they know they need to change. But there's also a degree and a handful of chefs that we've had in who are very fragile. They have fragile egos. And the first thing, bit of fucking feedback or criticism, or if you pull them up on something, they have a fucking meltdown. There's a couple of times that's happened. It's not a common thing, but every once in a while you'll have a chef out of maybe 10 that come in. You might have one or two that is just like, they take criticism like a fucking 12-year-old, you know. And I'm not talking criticism as in you're a fucking arsehole. I mean, like, criticism as in your nutrition is shit. Your post, and I haven't said your nutrition is shit, but the nutrition is shit when you've been shown how to eat. And it's like, okay, this is what I want you to eat. And then you post a picture of, you know what I mean? Like a Sambo, a bowl of cereal, and some fucking mac and cheese. And it's like, that's not even close to being the fucking nutrition plan that you've been given. And as soon as you say it to the person, they have a fucking meltdown. I've seen that happen a couple of times. That's a perfect example of a fragile ego. Even though what we're saying to you is factually correct, is undeniable, and is being said because it's going to make you better, they can't see that. All they can see is the fact that someone's made a personal slight at them, when in reality it's not even personal. That's low confidence, that's low self-esteem, and that's a massive ego in play. That's what happens when you have no confidence in yourself, but you have this bravado image on the front, and you're actually fucking scared child on the inside. You can't accept that. You can't take that. You got to identify that in yourself. You know, if you're someone who fucking takes things personally, and you're someone that can't receive feedback, criticism without fucking having a meltdown, like, you need to look at yourself. And that's the facts. You need to look at yourself, because a lot of the times it's like that criticism is to make you better. So in Chef Fit, we see that happen all the time. We see that archetype of a chef who's fucking probably a legend in the kitchen, probably in a head chef exec role. But when it comes to, they're not used to someone telling them what to do. They're not used to someone giving them feedback and criticism. They're not used to someone fucking being above them in some way, shape, or form. So they can't handle that. You know what I mean? That's a real problem. That's a very common thing to see within the industry. And I've worked with people like that. I'm sure Peter's worked with people like that. And it's something you see a lot of. Tying this all around, addressing that first and foremost. This is why parents have such a massive responsibility in today's society. And I really honestly feel that's why I talk about principles so much. It's why I try and fucking aim to be a person of integrity. It's why I aim to try and push myself to be a better human being and operate at a better level and be more responsible and be a better leader. And the reason for that is so when I have my kids, that I'm going to be able to impart some of that wisdom onto my children, so they may grow up and be leaders. They can grow up and be confident people who believe in themselves. They never have anything given to them necessarily in terms of, right, you're just gifted whatever in life. You have to fucking earn what you have in life. But also building them with the confidence so they don't grow up to be someone who's just fragile ego, you know, can't hack it, can't fucking handle it. I don't mean can't hack hard work. I mean, just can't handle anything that threatens their fucking sense of self. That's why I think parenthood is so important. You know, I see how you fucking you deal with your kids, man, and like you've got a really solid family, and you impart, you know, a lot of fucking positivity onto your kids. I think there's a lot of parents out there who can't say the same thing. I think there's a lot of parents out there
just copying my parents.
Yeah, exactly. Do you know what I mean? And it's this whole thing about, it's not about financial, it's not about any of those things. It's about what you leave your family. It's about what you're fucking, you know, are you leaving them with some foundation, a principle. where it's like, you got to be responsible for your fucking life. You got to push to do things. You got to fucking believe in yourself. And you know what I mean? You got to work hard if you want to get after something. Like, those are things that every child should be left with. And when you're not left with those lessons, you grow up as someone with no belief, no fucking confidence, and you second guess everything that you do. And that can really fuck you up later in life. But it's not an unfixable situation either. And this is why lifestyle is so important. And we talk about that dead time, floating through life doing fuck all. You're obviously, when you live your life like that, you're not going to have any certainty. You're not going to have any belief. You're not going to have any confidence. So you got to understand that in order for you to overcome this problem that you're facing, you must make your time alive. You know, you must really push to use the time you have to grow, to level up, and to challenge yourself. And the perfect way to challenge yourself and build confidence is by changing your lifestyle. And for every chef that's joined Chef Fit, Liam Kiernan's a great example. Liam Kiernan, I've used him as an example before. Guy came to me, no confidence, totally burnt out, never exercised in his life, all over the fucking place, could barely tell me his own name on the phone. Like, that was the level of belief that he had. He had zero confidence, zero self-esteem. And somewhere along the line within Chef Fit, you know, the process of him committing to himself, to overcoming all the voices in his head, to overcoming the discomfort when it comes to exercise and lifestyle, and being part of a tribe of other chefs who are kind of supporting each other and pushing each other forward and motivating each other, he started developing this incredible self-belief. Whereas if you were to talk to him today, 2 years later, it's like talking to a different human. It's like talking to someone who's, you know, in a very, very different space. It doesn't seem like the same guy. And the difference is he's earned his confidence. He's earned belief in himself. He's earned self-esteem because he's proven he's worth having self-esteem. He made the last 2 years of his life. He's still alive, obviously, but the 2 years just gone. Yeah, rest in peace. The last 2 years of his life, he has literally spent it fucking putting himself in fifth gear, putting his foot down and getting on the fucking offensive and getting and attacking his life and challenging himself and overcoming challenges. That's not an easy thing to do. It's fucking difficult, but it's the answer. It's the answer. Thing you're looking to find found in the place you least want to look. Everybody, like, this, all this fucking bullshit. Another terrible example. I read some Vice article by a morbidly obese woman about how bad it was to be a morbidly obese woman and how the narrative on obese people needs to change. I don't hate anyone for being fat. I'm not going to call you anything, like, do your thing. But if you want the world to change based because you make shit decisions in your lifestyle, go fuck yourself, because human beings and human nature doesn't change. Even if like, oh, you're a fat phobic, whatever the fuck that means. But it's like, you know, you want the world to change because you aren't bothered changing yourself. You know, oh, I went on Instagram this morning, you did a gym session, I didn't go to the gym, I'm triggered. You know, fuck off, you fucking lazy cunt. Life's about choices. You know, life's about choices. And we can all make a choice right now. You can make a choice to put yourself on a path to fucking change in your life. And what I mean by changing your life is actually challenging yourself, overcoming that challenge, and building self-belief off the back of it. Okay? You can make a choice to do that, or you can make a choice to stay doing the same fucking shit over and over again, eating shit, doing nothing with your lifestyle, floating in and out of work, and probably killing yourself for a job that you're not even fucking getting paid for properly. It's like, those are your two choices. So what's it going to be? But don't complain about the world. Don't complain about how bad things are. Don't complain about, you know, fat phobic. Sorry, it drove me fucking mental when I read it. You know, don't expect it to change when you're not willing to change yourself. Life's
triggered now.
Ah, stop, man. Like, it was a horror. Like, I feel for the woman because she was writing about, she's had these terrible sexual encounters and they're pretty horrendous. Someone said, you know what I mean, to her, do you mind if you turn around while we do it so I don't have to look at your face? Like, that was a pretty fucking dark thing to say to someone. It's like, fucking hell. But here's how I see that. If you have all these terrible sexual encounters and people treating you like shit because you're not overweight, like, we're talking morbidly obese. We're talking morbidly obese, really, really, really overweight person. You know, like, you get what I mean. And when you're in that situation, here's how I see it. Life is a choice, and all those choices where you didn't exercise, or all those choices where you gave up on your diet so you kept eating more shit, I was out here pushing myself to go to the gym, and I used to be a fucking fat person. Like I was overweight all my fucking teenage years. So I know what that's like. And I was like, why am I being made feel bad? And I'm being called, I'm not a fat phobic. I'm just someone who takes care of themselves. And I understand the importance of taking care of myself. And that's a smart thing to do. Like, you must understand that if life is giving you guff and life is putting you in situations where people are giving you fucking abuse like that, do you mind turning around so I don't have to look at your face? Like that kind of situation. If that was me, I would go, fuck this. I don't want to deal with this anymore. I'm going to fucking start taking care of myself and I'm going to get myself into shape. You know, that would be my mindset. And I'm going to earn this confidence so no one can fucking do that to me again. Whereas if you just no, instead, you probably did turn around. You probably did let him fucking ride you anyway, even despite he fucking embarrassed you. And then you carry on living life with that chip on your shoulder that everyone should treat you differently because you make bad decisions. That might be harsh to a lot of people. That's a fucking reality. You know what I mean? That's a reality. So don't be that person. Don't be that person that's just wallowing in the same place and complaining about it and waiting for something to change. You must be the change that you want to see. Yeah, you must be the change that you want to see. Take the fucking action. Understand that the next year for you could be in a lifetime or it could be a dead time. You could float through another 12 months or you can attack another 12 months. But if you attack the next 12 months with your lifestyle, guarantee you'll have your confidence levels. At least you'll have improved them. Whereas if you do nothing, you're going to get what you've always got, which is low confidence and low self-belief. So that's my opinion on it. I think you have to earn it. I've earned my confidence. Peter's earned his fucking confidence. You know what I mean? And it wasn't always there. It wasn't always a fucking thing. But you have to fucking take that. You have to do something about it. And all the chefs that I coach within the tribe who have changed their lives and have gotten to that stage themselves, they have fucking earned it. It didn't come easy. They've earned it. They made a choice. And life is about choices. So make the right one. Do the right thing. That's what I'd say to you, chef. That's what I'd leave you with today. Anything to add on that, Petey, before we drive this lad into the fucking harbour? Park it up, stick it in fucking neutral.
No, just, you have to remember when you're talking about that fat Karen that you're a strong, young, self-made white man and you're the fucking problem, Cam. Not her confidence. You're the problem. You're apologize. You're a white man. You apologize now before we end the podcast.
Yeah. If anyone doesn't follow Bill, if anyone hasn't seen any of Bill Burr's stuff, he had a fucking hilarious joke, and he was talking about white women. It's like, who made fucking white females the fucking the flag bearers,
moral compass,
the moral fucking crusaders? It's like, you're in the fucking like fucking white privilege. Okay, if fucking I have privilege, they have fucking privilege too. Give me a fucking break. You know what I mean? But that's why I don't buy it. Like the whole moral crusade on other people's behalf. Who the fuck are you to be the fucking judge, jury, and executioner? Go fuck yourself with your fucking fat phobia. Get out of here. Like I can't support a message. I can't support a fucking movement. I can't support a movement that makes you feel better about proactively fucking shortening your life and lowering your quality of life. And ultimately negatively impacting any family that you might have in your life. Yeah, that's how I see it. I don't give a fuck about your feelings. Like, everyone's feelings get hurt. My feelings have been hurt plenty of times. I didn't see anyone else coming to my fucking aid to make sure I'm okay, to make sure that the world changes so I feel better about myself. Bullshit. Free market, folks. Free fucking market. Don't prejudice.
It's all okay, or fucking none of it's okay. It's getting worse and worse and worse. It's going to have to capitulate at some stage and then go back to, not go back to the way it was, because obviously things weren't perfect before, but this whole ultra woke movement, it's just gone.
But it's been ridiculous.
It's getting worse and worse every fucking day.
It's been worse. It's been getting worse for fucking like 2 or 3 years. And here's the problem. I'm kind of seen as the enemy for even pointing that out. I'm all for fucking, equality of opportunity. You know what I mean? And empowering females. I'm all for fucking, destroying the systemic racism that's going on in the States right now towards black people. I'm all for that kind of shit. But there's a certain point where it's like, I'm still a realist and I'm still fucking well aware of what life is fucking supposed to be about. And I know it's about choices. And I know that You can't just, because you're a fucking weak person, which is the majority of these people who talk like that are, they're weak victims of their own circumstance, that they want the world to change for them because they're weak, as opposed to they sort themselves out so they can rise to the fucking challenge. So yes, we can have a better world where everyone is treated equally. Yes, we can have a better world where we're removing a lot of these systemic fucking ancient, ideologues that have been in place for so much time. But at the end of the day, like, life doesn't change. You know, you get what you give. Don't expect that to ever change. You get what you give. If you're not willing to do something about your life, then don't expect it to be better, and don't expect someone to change it for you. Reality, facts. Anyway.
Could I trigger you before you go?
Well,
have you heard anything about J.K. Rowling, the trans community, and the TERF wars?
No, I haven't. Oh, God.
Do you know what you know what a TERF is?
No.
So, basically, right? So J.K. Rowling is and always has been the champion for the little person.
Yeah.
Okay, for race, for the LGBTQI community, she has always been a champion. You know, she's been like very proactive about it. But she has fallen on the bad side of the trans community on Twitter, the ultra woke trans community, because basically what J.K. Rowling said was, there was this, the trans people were saying, you're not allowed to say women can, you're not allowed to say that only women get a period, okay? And the way it happened was, there was this, you know, this tribal village in the back arse of Africa, right? Like I said, it's going to trigger you and then drop the mic and walk away. Where it came from was, there was this.
You're going to ruin my day.
I am going to fucking ruin your day. You're lucky you don't have the fucking Primera, because you'd be in the car for a Chronicle later on. Right? So,
stop.
Yeah. So basically, they were handing out these leaflets. They were teaching about sanitation in these schools in the tribal village in Africa, and the trans people are given out because all the leaflets for women's sanitation were all for women. Okay. And they were like, well, what if there was a woman that was born in a man's body that lives in that tribe? And there's this big article written about it. And because J.K. Rowling follows and supports trans rights, this came up, and she was like, well, this is a bit mad, because what there's, you know, women, you know, men, only women can only women can menstruate. That's what it was. Only women can menstruate. And as soon as she said that, she got absolutely slated. She got the most death threats you're ever going to see in your life. You know, she put up this thing going. She did a little Twitter competition where kids could go and draw and color in scenes from Harry Potter to win, you know, a signed copy of the book. The trans people overtook that, went in and started posting pictures of their lady penises and exposing themselves, and called her a TERF, which was a trans exclusionary radical feminist. So you're excluding certain aspects of trans because you said that women can't menstruate, because if you can't say that, because if a boy is born in a girl's body, you're not allowed to tell him that he can't menstruate because
he doesn't get they don't, like, a transgender doesn't get a period. What are we talking about?
I swear to God.
What do we fucking get together in a circle and hold hands and we'll do the old spiritual menstruation? What are you fucking on about?
You're only allowed, you have to, according to them, you have to say people menstruate, not women menstruate.
But none of this is about rights. None of this is about equality. This is about power. This is the whole thing about
science.
Yeah.
About biology.
Well, that's just like that argument in itself of, you know, that's fucking retarded in and of itself. And it's actually retarded. You shouldn't say retard. It's fucking retarded. Okay? It's retarded. Mentally fucking retarded shit. You're offending retarded people. No, I'm not. No one's listening to this podcast is in that fucking category. And they shouldn't be offended anyway. It's a factual statement. It's fucking moronic. And here's why it's fucking moronic. Because transgenders don't fucking bleed out of their, you know what I mean? Whether it be the penis that you still have, whether it be the fucking
lady
you know what I
penis.
mean, or the surgery that you've had the penis removed and it looks like the bat with the fucking teeth out, or whatever. It's like it doesn't happen. So why is that even a conversation? Why is that even an argument? And here's the thing.
It's
The
a fucking
fact,
huge argument at the moment, and it's the stupidest thing I have ever heard in my
but
life.
this is the problem with the far left. This is the problem with extreme leftism and this whole these ideologies. I'm all for everyone having equality. I'm all for you being who you want to be. I'm all for, if you want me to fucking call you a certain thing, I'll call you a certain thing. Okay? But don't try and enact laws and don't try and change reality and replace it with fallacy and replace it with your just things that are you would like to happen, imaginary things. You know what I mean? Like transgenders don't bleed. If you're not born a female biologically, like you're not going to have a period. You're not going to excrete blood. So I don't get how is that even a conversation? And this is the problem with the far left. It's like there's no foundation behind the philosophy. It's just rights, and there's no responsibility to the truth. And because there's no responsibility to the truth, because there's no foundation of truth in what they're saying, it's like it's fractal. It just keeps, it's chaos. It just keeps, what's the fucking next thing? You know what I mean? It's never going to stop. This shit's never going to stop. They're going to keep coming up with stupid shit to be offended over, but there's nothing to be offended over. And the problem about conversations like that is it actually robs people's attention of what's truly important. You know what I mean? So, like, why are you focused on that? And why aren't you focused on the fucking, you know, I know they're different issues, but in my opinion, you know, like having to go with J.K. Rowling on Twitter over fucking her saying nothing wrong, that's retarded. You know,
Especially when she's being their champion. And, you know, to have such a rich and powerful and well-known straight person as your champion more than anybody else to try and chop her down.
Yeah.
Because, you know, she believes in 99.9% and is all for trans rights. But then then they go fucking
off the wall.
stupid and start saying stuff like that.
That's why Trump got fucking voted in.
It's all I'm telling you now. I always try and trace this shit back, and there was one video of this girl in a college in America in California screaming at this young guy because he had gotten dreadlocks done.
Yeah,
and it was an ultra woke black woman, and she was going mad, screaming like absolute freak out, going, take them off, you've no right to have your hair like that. And step by step, now I know that wasn't the first step, like, you know, the whole safe space, all that shit started there and then, but that is connected with a very fucking straight line to J.K. Rowling being labeled a TERF because she said that only women can menstruate.
Yep, exactly. It's
what the fuck is going on?
Yeah, it's a problem. I've talked about this for at least the past 2 or 3 years. I remember when I got called toxically masculine by a gay guy who was pretty much sexually fucking not sexually harassing. I hesitate to say that, even though fucking most people on the left wouldn't hesitate to say that. I would hesitate to say that. But any chance that he got to make a sexual innuendo towards me in the conversation, he would make it. But I was the one that was toxically masculine because I'm a large male who's straight and lifts weights. Even though if you met me in person, I'm a fucking sweetheart. I'm a nice guy. I'm very considerate. I'm very fucking, you know what I mean? I'm a nice person. I know I am. So, like, I know what it's like to be fucking, it's not about the privilege thing. I don't play the victim on that shit, but I see hypocrisy from a fucking mile away. And they've no problem having to go with people who they see as the patriarchy when it's like, all you're looking to do is replace that with your own fucking weird matriarchal fucking shit. So don't act like you're doing it for equality. You're doing it because you're a victim. You're looking for a bandwagon to jump on. You're looking to be frustrated at something. What you're saying isn't even true a lot of the times. And the problem there is you actually detract attention from things that are true that do need to be addressed. And that's the whole problem with these stupid fucking arguments. Weak, So the other thing is, good times create weak people. Weak people create weak men, and weak men can continue to facilitate worse times. And I think we've got a massive problem across the world right now. You know, we've got masculinity that's being destroyed bit by bit. That we have the only view of masculinity that's left is this toxic fucking asshole wolf whistling dickhead. You know what I mean? That's what a man is, and that's not what a fucking man is. You know what I mean? And these conversations are just, they're just getting more and more ridiculous, and we're getting so much further from the truth. And the further society gets from the truth, the more chaos is going to ensue. So that's why I think it's important to fucking put the foot down and call fucking bullshit when there's bullshit to be called. You know, we can't just accept shit like this because these people see themselves as the downtrodden. Like, fuck off. You know what I mean? I've never.
And it's important to be you as well, and not to fucking bend to that shit as well.
Especially when you've got nothing to fucking hide. I don't nothing.
Yeah,
like
I not even just even the opposite to that, about not having that to hide. About, you know, if you don't believe in that, don't say anything. Say no, that's not okay.
Yeah, you know,
stand up for yourself as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Stand up for yourself.
Because it's fucking hypocrisy. Stand up for yourself against hypocrisy.
And especially if you're being treated in a certain way, like that whole idea of like me being toxically masculine, like that really fucking frustrated me. That really angered me, because I'm not. I'm a really, really kind, like, I'm quite a gentle person, and I'll always treat people with respect. I'll always be fucking, you know, I'll always have good manners when I meet people, no matter what walk of life you are, no matter what fucking skin color, no matter what gender, no matter what fucking sexual preference. I'll always try and treat people the same, with respect, you know, and I'll always try and treat you the way you would like to be treated. So when you try and just because of the way I look, you're prejudiced against me because I look like a fucking, you know, a big man. So therefore, any big man out there is a misogynistic asshole who's a racist and a fucking bigot. Like, you put me into that box, well, like, you're going to put everyone into that box, and ultimately you create your own enemy. You know, it's like people who might be for your fucking arguments and might be for equality, you're trying to make everything equal, you turn them against you because you're fucking making them into the enemy. And it's fucking bullshit, you know, because you're accusing people of being things that they're not. And people don't take to that. I don't fucking take to it, and I'm not going to listen to that shit. So yeah,
it's now what and what next.
Yeah, exactly.
Now what will it? Now, okay, I've sorted that out. Everybody's pissed off about that. So now what am I going to be pissed off about? Yeah. What's next?
Exactly. I think it's changed. I think it peaked 2 or 3 years ago. I think people are waking up to the fact that it's fucking stupid shit that people are talking about. Anyone that looks at Jordan Peterson stuff, he's definitely been a hero for, you know, just speaking facts, speaking truth, and actually deciphering what the real situation is. You know what I mean? And getting away from the bullshit of you're just making up rules that aren't based on anything. You know what I mean? Z, all of these things, pronouns, like, why do you have 80 different pronouns for describing what a person is? Like, can we get with the fuck? What's next? You know, Fox
you let everybody else be everybody else.
Yeah, I'm gonna start identifying as a lamp, and you have to fucking treat me like a lamp, you cunt, bigot. Do you know what I mean? Madness. Anyway. Yeah, get the dark lights out, folks. We go.
I'm officially a lamp.
Yeah, there we go. That's me, Lamp.
Subscribe.
Yeah, subscribe to the
5
channel.
stars. Pass the pod.
Lamp fit.
Give us a like.
Yeah, there you go, folks. Listen to what the lamp said. Like and share. Subscribe to the channel. If you were triggered by this, unsubscribe. Give us a thumbs up. That's been a ramble from myself and Peter. We were talking about confidence. We got into lamps. We got into all sorts of shit. But that is our episode.
Live from Air Chronicles.
You fucking better believe it, son. That's our episode for today, folks. Thank you very much. PD, stay safe, my friend. I will catch everyone in the next episode. Peace.
Yeah!